So, you've got the deal, hole 17. Where do you need to be the next time you deal? Yeah, and preferably even into that zone of waves. But as a minimum 43, and even nicer if I could be 46, deeper in the zone. So I need to be making those decisions about that position, not when I pick the deck up to deal. You see? But when I put the deck down from my last deal. You see what I mean? You need to take some steps immediately following scoring that crib on that deal in order to ensure that you'll be here when the time comes around. How would this be? The opponent has the deal, you're both at hole 16 and 17. What does that tell you?
Trouble.
Your opponent has a deal, the game's about even.
He's got the advantage.
He's gonna slow him down.
You got defense.
But it tells you also that they have minimum position. How many times do you hear me say, I can afford to give this person can take 8 or 10 on their hand, I just can't afford to give them a crib. That's what this kind of a situation is, when you're basically dead even. You need to stiff them on the crib. Now, I'm not suggesting here to tear up a really good hand if you got a 4, 2 5s, and a 6. I'm not saying you should throw the king 6. Okay? But if you have a chance to make a really stingy discard to their crib, do it. Earlier in the game you can do it and start sticking them with them 0 and 2 cribs. The more you will improve your chances to be dealing down here on 4th Street with an advantage. And I think some of you have, yes.
What is the maximum number of points you sacrifice to balk to crib?
The question is, what's the maximum number of points you should sacrifice to make a discard to your crib? Is it your crib or the opponent's crib?
Opponent's crib.
Generally no more than 2. Most of the time, no more than 1. Here's an example. I've mentioned this before. If you had a 6, 7, 8, 9 with a 1 king, why not throw the 9 king if a small crib is important? If your position is okay and it looks like a small crib would keep your opponent at bay in the game, instead of keeping 6, 7, 8, 9 for 8, we keep 1, 6, 7, 8 for 7. And we toss a very safe 9 king. As a rule,
I know doing the cribs, I got 12, then my opponent, he got 17. You know, that off.
well, I don't know. See, position is the whole thing.
Yeah.
There are times when you don't even want to hold 12. There are times when you've got really good advantage in the game. Really good advantage in the game, and if by holding 5 or 12, which might be 2 7s and 2 8s, and tossing 5 5 to your opponent's crib, you might want to toss a 5 8. See? That you got to be willing to make those kind of. Now those are the exceptions. As a rule, if you had 2 7s and 2 8s, you would just toss the other 2 cards. But again, board position makes the decision for you. And that's why it's real important to get a clear understanding of board position, because it not only makes the decision for you on discarding, it makes a decision for you on pegging. Whether you should be trying to avoid pegs playing off, or whether you should be trying to get pegs by playing on. So the key to this game is board position. The good players, the best players for all the years I've been in the ACC are people who play cribbage by board position from hole 1. They are not people, you hear them say all the time, people play this game. I ain't even looking at position till I get on 4th Street. Hey, if you really want to improve your game, start taking position when your pegs are sitting in the start holes. Okay? And I've kind of already covered this. Bottom line on that game, of that chart there was 72 games. The bottom line looks great. 42 of the 72. 42 of those 72 games there, that's 60%. I didn't make 26, but if I look at the bottom line, it looks fine. Now let's talk a little bit about, there is a figure that is important, and that is that over 90% of all the games you play are going to end in 8, 9, or 10 deals. You're talking about very few games that fall outside of 8, 9, or 10 deals. No matter how slow it seems to be going, most games will be over 10 deals. No matter how, or 8. And no matter how fast it's going, there's hardly ever a 6-deal game. There's hardly ever. So, and 7 odd deals under 8 are very unusual, and odd deals over 8 are very unusual. In other words, there's very few games of 11 hands, and there's very few games of 13. Very few. Very unusual. When most of the games are going to end either on the 9th deal, or they're going to end on an even numbered deal, which the person that got the first crib is counting first on the even deals. So the dealer advantage is a big factor. Then you should have a paper that says 8-5 on it. And it's pretty much what I did most of it, but there are a couple points here that I want to cover. Sometimes people ask, what do you consider a poor hand? Because sometimes I talk about having a poor hand, a good hand, an excellent hand. So if you run into that terminology in something that I've written, this is how I define a poor hand. A poor hand is 0 to 5. That's nobody's classified it that way, except I have written quite a bit of stuff on cribbage, and if I say there's a poor hand, I'm talking about 5 points or less. 0 to 5.
Before that.